The biggest question for the Sixers heading into this offseason involves Quentin Grimes and his status as a restricted free agent. Grimes was acquired at last season's trade deadline and was putting up some great numbers for the Sixers, averaging around 22 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. And the Sixers are trying to bring him back and hoping that he can be a contributor to a championship team. And so far, there have been reports about how the contract negotiations are going. Some are saying it's going to be around, 72 million, 48 million. But we got this bombshell report from NBA Central right as I was about to record this video. So we really are breaking it down as it happens. Welcome on into NZ for 3. If you are new around here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate it a lot. But let's get right down into it. So yeah, this is not good news. I'm going to be 100% honest. This is not good. Quentin Grimes reportedly wants $25 million per season. The Sixers have been in contact with Grimes and his camp, although the price may end up being steep. Grimes is looking for a contract that averages $25 million per season, according to league sources, and that's going to be around a $100 million contract for Quentin Grimes. And we do live in an era where a lot of role players are getting some steep deals, whether it's OG Anunoby, Naz Reid, Nick Claxton. They've been getting some good contracts, for what they are worth as role players. And Quentin Grimes, I guess he's trying to look for that since he had a really good year with the Sixers. And, of course, the Sixers in their salary cap situation is complicated, and they don't really have a lot of maneuverability when it comes to the contracts they can absorb, and especially when it comes to retaining some players like Quentin Grimes and Gershon Yabusele. Now, with Quentin Grimes, they do have the benefit of his bird rights and his, status as a restricted free agent, meaning that they can match whatever salary a team gives him. So we have those other teams like the Nets and the Pistons, teams with a lot of salary cap space, who can offer Grimes a big deal and sort of put the Sixers in a little bit of a bind. And, the Sixers, they could, take that contract if it's, too big. They could always do it, but it will have a serious impacts on their cap situation. And I was doing some digging into the salary cap and just, looking into what the Sixers can and cannot do, going through a whole bunch of different scenarios. And when it comes to Quentin Grimes' status as a free agent, they pretty much have to choose between him and Gershon Yabusele. It is going to be really hard for them to keep both. Now, you got Andre Drummond accepting his player option, Kelly Oubre accepting his player option. Then you got, Gordon on his player option, as well as Lonnie Walker on his team option. That's probably going to be declined. But yeah, the Sixers, because of Paul George's huge contract and, Maxey and Embiid and how big their contracts are, the Sixers, they have spent a lot on their team and it's quite top heavy. And so they are in, the upper echelons when it comes to spending in the NBA. And they kind of have a tight window when it comes to retaining some players. So let's just get right into that scenario. So we're going to go use the help of my boy Grok here to really lay it down and make it as clear as possible, and I'll try to not make it boring. So we're just going to start with Quentin Grimes and the scenario that he signs a $48 million contract. And now that's pretty much half of what he is expecting and what him and his camp are expecting. Now, that report that, could always just be chalked down as a negotiating strategy, for, the Sixers and trying to, get him that big contract or get some type of deal done before the Nets and the Pistons try and give him a lucrative deal. So yeah, let's just say the Sixers offer him $48 million. And I got that number due to the article I read, from Bobby Marks about free agency and what the Sixers should do. And he said, hey, try and give him a $48 million contract. And I'm like, okay, whatever. We'll try that scenario first. So because there are annual raises to NBA contracts, Grimes is going to be starting out getting $10.8 million for a $48 million deal over 4 years. So that is going to have an impact on the Sixers cap because they are at $186 million in total. Even when you include, VJ Edgecombe and all of that, they're at $186 million, and that's around $9.8 million below the first apron. The new CBA that was negotiated, you had the first apron, the second apron, and there are certain restrictions, and hard caps and stuff depending on what you do, how much you spend and how you spend it. So yeah, they have $9.8 million worth of cap space, and if they add Grimes and sign him to that $48 million contract, that $10.8 million is going to be added and get you 196.9 million, which exceeds the 196 roughly million first apron cap. So if they do that, they then enter that second apron threshold where they can then offer Gershon Yabusele the 5.7 taxpayer, mid-level exception worth not 5.7 million. And if they try to do that, then that will get their salary at around 202 million, and that is 5 million below that second apron. So even if they sign Grimes to that, most ideal, probably the cheapest one that he would be offered at this point, then even if they try and do that, it's still going to be a really hard time to get Yabusele that, the deal that is worth his value as a player. And you got teams like the Spurs who are interested in him because he was playing in the Olympics with Wemby. So it's going to be a really difficult scenario for the Sixers to keep both of them. Now, you probably heard of this term, the non-taxpayer middle-level exception at $14 million. And what that allows is it helps a team, fill out the roster, giving them a good role player by giving them $14 million to spend if they're over the cap but under the first apron. And so you're probably wondering, why can't the Sixers just do that to give Yabu more money? Well, it is not as, simple as it sounds, because that would trigger the hard cap. And what the hard cap is, the first apron, that's 196, we're just going to say $196. So 196 million, that would be their new cap. So that means they cannot go over it under any circumstance. Now, that just happens even if you hand it out. Just by handing out that non-taxpayer middle-level exception, you're triggering that hard cap. It's just how the CBA works. So the Sixers, if they give Yabu, let's say $9 million, that is over that $5.7 million taxpayer exception that you would be granted if you were already over the first apron. So if you're under the first apron, you get 14. If you're over it, you get 5.7. So what the Sixers would have to do is, if they wanted to re-sign Grimes, because they gave Yabu that $9 million, if they use that non-taxpayer, because it's considered that because it's more than the taxpayer one. If this is already sounding really confusing, I know, I'm doing my best here. But yeah, they would basically be hard capped if they give Yabu more money first. And what they would have to do to keep Grimes is that they would have to give Grimes the contract first to exceed that first apron and then hand Yabu the taxpayer one, because they'd give him the non-taxpayer one at a little bit better of a price for him. Then the Sixers will pretty much not be able to sign Grimes because they are capped at $196 million. So let's go to a more realistic scenario where the Sixers give Grimes around $70 million per year. And if they give Grimes around $70 million, he's going to get a starting salary at $106 million. Add that, and you're at $202 million. So you're already nearing that cap. You're already nearing the second apron, at least. So you're over the first apron, but you're under the second apron. And it turns out that's $5.7 million under that salary cap. So what you could do is you could pretty much offer Yabu that exception, and you'll be perfectly in line with the salary cap, exactly right to the amount of money you're allotted. So that's something else the Sixers could do as well if it's around $72 million, which is probably, in my opinion, the most realistic scenario for them. So this is around the sweet spot the Sixers are looking for. Now, Yabu, is he going to take this money? We have no idea, because there are reports that he bought a new house in Philly, so maybe he just likes Philly a lot and, would be willing to be generous to take less money for what he is worth and stay with the Sixers. And I want him to stay with the Sixers because I think, they don't have a starting power forward. And, I think Yabu was great despite him not being put in a good position by Nick Nurse, because Nurse was playing him at center and it was horrible. Yet Yabu was still a quality role player who I could envision playing well next to PG, Maxey, and Embiid as a stretch four who can shoot the ball well and dive for loose balls and fight for rebounds. But are the Sixers going to keep Quentin Grimes instead, given that he is more talented, he's a better perimeter defender, and he is a better shot maker, and that's probably what they're going to be looking for as they're building a championship contender. I don't know if Yabu really is as big as the Sixers want in a power forward and would rather just settle with the talent instead. And that would mean, I guess, Grimes would have to start. I mean, Nick Nurse did play politics with Nick Nurse and Doc Rivers played politics with Tobias Harris and how big his contract was. So you would have Maxey, Grimes, Paul George, I guess Kelly Oubre, or whoever they find at power forward, and Embiid, or you'd have Jared McCain start at the 2 and then have Grimes as a 6-man. Either way, I mean, I think I like Quentin Grimes a lot. I think he's been a player that the Sixers have always needed. Like a combo guard that can do multiple things on the floor and play great defense as well as be a reliable shot maker, especially from three-point range. And the Sixers would probably choose Grimes over Yabu in any scenario. I probably would. But if this is like the worst scenario that we have right here, where Grimes is being offered a salary where he would be making 25 initially, 25 million, that would put the Sixers at 211 million with those annual raises, and when you add, our current salary plus that top 25 million cap impact for next season, you would be $4 million over that second apron, and that's not good. It's not good for a team that is completely just delusional like the Phoenix Suns when you put Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on the same team, 3 guys who need the ball in their hands. I think with the Sixers, it's a little bit tamer of a situation because they have a roster that fits together when they are healthy. But regardless, the second apron, that's not really somewhere you want to be because of the restrictions that you have when it comes to trades. Like some I can list off the top of my head is that you can't trade a pick that is 7 years into the future, and you can't add multiple salaries to a trade. It's a big deal with the second apron and going over it. And Josh Harris, I don't know if he's going to be willing to spend that much, or I don't know if Daryl Morey is willing to, take that risk with Grimes, because who knows, man? Like, he could regress a little bit if he's not getting those shots and become another liability as a contract. I don't think so, but it's the Sixers, anything could happen. But I hope I clear things up a little bit with Quentin Grimes issue, and hopefully I think they hit that sweet spot with around 70 million per year. Either way, they would have to shed some significant salary, whether that's Oubre or Drummond. Do something, maybe a Paul George trade possibly to get Yabu back. I just don't see it happening, and I predict that Quentin Grimes will stay with the Sixers, but at the expense of Gershon Yabusele leaving for another team. And we seem to already be on the right track for that, since Eric Gordon declined his $3.4 million player option. So the Sixers are still trying to clear some salary. But regardless, I don't know, like with Quentin Grimes and his deal, even if it matters, I mean, they'd have to get off of Oubre and Drummond somehow and not really take anything else in return in order to bring back Yabu and Grimes. So we'll see what happens, what transpires. And man, thanks for sticking around. I hope to see y'all in the next one. Peace.